Hey there, it's Stephanie Shea, Chief Astrologer for janspiller.com. Here again with Val D'Ambrosio for episode 11, Coaching Through the Astrological Forecast. And we are on Virgo season. This is going to be a great episode because we were just talking about how a lot of this Virgo stuff is very relatable to everybody. Everybody's probably got a bit of this energy in their chart, whether it's a sixth house planet. Sixth house is a Virgo themed house, or other planets in Virgo, even if it isn't your sun sign. And even if you didn't have any planets in Virgo, Mercury is going to be going retrograde in the sign of Virgo September 9th. And it will go retrograde in Libra September 9th through the 22nd. And September 23rd to October 2nd, Mercury goes retrograde in Virgo. And so a lot of the things we're going to talk about in the second part of this is dealing with Mercury retrograde energy in Virgo when the Virgo energy gets out of whack. But I always love to start with the favorite traits for each sign's energy. And the things I love about Virgos is how organized, efficient, and detail-oriented they are, how they have a call to be of service to others. Usually they're very good with small animals as well. That's a hallmark. And health-minded. A lot of my Virgo clients are in healthcare, in the healing arts of some kind. And Virgo people know how to get the job done. Very capable, very reliable. They have really discerning eye and taste. If you want to find out how something looks, you can ask a Virgo, does anything look out of balance here? And they will catch anything that may be amiss in your work. They're great editors and proofreaders and writers usually, because they are ruled by the planet Mercury, which is our communication planet. And I think other Virgo traits that I love is just how precise they are, the fine motor skills that come along with that. I think of surgeons or somebody who creates something with their hands in a very detailed way. And just that they have such a refined, tasteful style. There's a lot to love about Virgo. And as I said, Virgo season is coming right up August 22nd, and it goes through September 21st. And we will have our new moon at 4 degrees Virgo on August the 27th. This is a great time to set those intentions, maybe related to some of those Virgo themes. If you really need to get organized, that's your new moon to set intentions. And we get to enjoy Venus in the sign of Virgo almost all of September, the 5th through the 28th. This, to me, will help us feel good about doing things that are good for us. And we can talk more about that, how kind of the Virgo people in our lives can help us with that. We can do more things for ourselves that are actually good for us. And as I said, the Mercury retrograde coming right up September 9th to October 2nd. It'll be in Libra retrograde the 9th through the 22nd. Virgo retrograde the 23rd to October 2nd. And before all that, right around when Mercury turns retrograde is the full moon. 17 Pisces. I always think these full moons are important when we're talking about the energy of the sun, because it's an opposition. The sun in Virgo is going to oppose the moon in Pisces. That's going to bring out some of this polarity, and it could feel a little bit overwhelming emotionally. I think there can be issues where people feel almost victimized under this Pisces moon, and I encourage people, I said this in the September forecast too, to think about what they can control for themselves, because there can almost be a helpless feeling that comes up around this Pisces full moon. So that's some good things to keep in mind. Now, we'll talk about these out of balance traits that may show up for all of us while Mercury is retrograde in Virgo. And so I had to start with this one, of course. Being overly critical of self and others. Each sign has its stereotype, and the Virgos get that one for being critical. And of course, this is not true. It's not all Virgos are picky and critical. But I think if you have this in your chart and you're stressed and you're out of balance, it can come up for you. And you might feel suddenly the need to control a situation in order to feel safe. And I think if you have some Virgo in your chart, you can be hard on yourself if things don't go the way you had planned and fixate on, oh, this should have been done this way. I should have done this. This person didn't do it right. That's why, you know. And so knowing that this is likely to be a theme coming up in September, I thought I would ask Val, how can she help clients who have a critical voice in their head and just beat themselves up for mistakes or have an unrealistic expectation that people will do things perfectly?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Okay. So I can relate to this. I know a lot of people probably can, but I do have a Virgo rising, and I have a question for you, Steph, that you might be able to clarify. But um, with Virgo rising, I heard this once. Virgo, if you're Virgo sun, that judge or that critic will be more external, still internal, but more external. But when it's the rising, it's going to show up a lot internal judgment and less, not as much external. I don't know how true that is, but have you ever heard that before?
You know, I would see it as sort of being maybe triggered by other people because if you think of the rising sign as how you meet the world,
Mm.
it may be that you encounter somebody and you perceive that they're criticizing you or the way that the interaction goes, you walk away from it like, oh, why did that happen? Why did I do that? That was terrible. And so, in that way, it's internal, but it was maybe triggered by an external person.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
And the other thing is though, when I was reading the notes and before we spoke and it said about the small animals, like I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Cause I have this thing with whether it's like little dogs or little, the moment I see them, and I don't know for those of you that have a lot of Virgo can relate to this, it's almost like I can feel the simplicity of this animal calm my nervous system. And I just have this like this softness in my heart. It's like no matter what could be going on in that moment, I could be like so tight and rigid. And all of a sudden I see and I'm like, and something inside of me can relax. So I thought that was really cool.
I think it's definitely a mutually beneficial relationship
Yeah,
because any animals being cared for by Virgo type people are going to get the most excellent care, but then animals will give back in that way.
totally. And so around like a lot comes up when I was when I told Steph this. I was like, it's so funny because when I first got the notes yesterday, I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I don't know. And I do all of these and da, 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 and I noticed this internal critic, like total judging myself. And I was just like, you know what, Valerie? Let's put it down now. Let's not try to come to the answers around it right now. And you'll go on a hike tomorrow and you'll know what to say. And it was as I was spacious in the hike that started coming in. I started to get the download. And I'm going to bring up that tool in a moment, but I do want to talk about that judge or that critic. So when I was reflecting on all of the Virgo things, I was thinking, first of all, inner child work is really, really big. I mean, it's huge. And there are many different methods out there as to how to go in, but as far as I'm concerned, time space continuum, all time is happening at the same time. So we all have certain wounds from our childhood, especially because we were creating meaning, adding meaning to our lives without an analytical mind, all through our feelings. So, we're in being raised by people that some of them have never been parents before. Some of them were young. A lot of them had coping mechanisms. A lot of them never even looked at their own stuff or anything like that. And so we were taking this in as that was the feedback of life through our feeling brain. And so when I think about the judger or the critic that comes in, it's to me that was a survival mechanism. It's almost like how, it's like, I need to completely judge the situation to know I'm safe, or I have to, my nervous system is so out of whack because of so much chaos in my life. I have to make sure I'm controlling situations, so things have to be a precise way in order for me to feel safe, right? Or it could be just maybe the role modeling that we had, our mother, our father, or whoever was closest to us, perhaps that they were very critical people. Again, this is not a judgment to them. We all had the upbringing that we were supposed to as souls evolving in this human life. And I truly believe that. And we got what we were supposed to get. And it was a gift because we got learned different things from it. So in that moment, when we notice ourselves, awareness is always the first step, right? So in the moments that we notice we're either really critical of ourselves or critical of another, that awareness right there, that's victory. First of all, that's huge. And the other thing that comes to mind is, think about it like, I love my parents so much, but my mother she's very critical of herself and of a lot of things in life. My father is very critical of a lot of things and people in life and not afraid to say it. And so I learned this behavior. And if you think about, most of us learn this behavior either from our role modeling or as a way to survive. And so, like children or a computer that hasn't been upgraded and needs to be upgraded, we get to, as adults, in that awareness, right? We get to become aware of, wow, like there it is. There's that critical voice. Yet it's time for me to give it back to my parents. I don't have to take that with me anymore. It's like a knapsack I've been carrying around with a bunch of rocks in it. And it's like, here you go. And it's not a matter of to condemn them or make them wrong, but it's just like, I want to bless them. I want to give that back to them. I want to bless them, right? For them showing up in my life, but then cut the cord in the sense of, this is not mine to hold on to. This pattern is not something. And I think about it even beyond who we are now. Like in this new gesture, we're creating a new ancestral pattern. And so here we go. Let's pull in the Virgo of being of service. To be of service for my lineage, I'm going to cut this cord. I see the pattern. I recognize it doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve anyone. Bless them, give it back to them. And now I want to go, okay, the universe abhors a vacuum. So if I'm going to remove the judgment for now, what do I want to fill it with? And so in that moment, can I find compassion and acceptance toward myself? And perhaps that's saying something like, I love you and your imperfection. Of course, I'm just human. I'm just figuring this out. Or that person that potentially you're judging or being critical of. I think about my partner when he does things, and I watch my judger come in, and I think about wabi sabi love. If that action weren't there, if that thing that he was doing that I'm saying is driving me crazy weren't there, that means he wouldn't be there. And so in that moment, I just want to bless him and thank him, and just realize that I can put my judger and my critic on the side for a while. So that I find is a really useful thing and here's another keyword for Virgos, that I'm practicing. I'm
Mm.
not, I'm not perfecting it. I'm not pretending to be perfect at it, but giving ourselves that permission to practice, to be in discovery, to be really messy, I feel is huge for heavy Virgos.
Yeah, I like that because I think you can be kind of perfect in your practice, that you show up and practice it when you intend to. And that maybe could be an outlet, if you feel like, okay, I need something to feel like I'm doing how can I feel perfect in what I'm doing?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I think there's a lot of good tips in there. I think releasing, how you say, to give it back to ancestors or anybody who you feel like it came from them in such a loving way, and be able to have more space for something new to replace it. The thing I think about with Virgo energy is it likes to have something to work on. It's very productive and ambitious, and so just get the brain going, maybe, right, and working on something different. I like
Yeah.
that. Okay, well, we're still talking about the brain because it is Mercury ruled Virgo. So I think there's a tendency under Virgo energy when it's out of balance, like this upcoming Mercury retrograde, that can make it hard for people to let go. And maybe, instead of saying, oh, well, that's just what happened, it gets us stuck and having trouble moving on and maybe continuing to try to solve a problem long after it's time to let things go. And so this is something I think probably a lot of the sun signs can relate to, but definitely Virgo people dwelling in such an unhealthy way on why, that analytical mind, but why did this happen? Meanwhile, they could just be doing something productive with that. So, how could you help some clients who might be obsessing over the past or things that can't be changed? Or maybe it's that worry. They're obsessing over something that hasn't even happened yet.
Totally. Again, I know this so well, right? And like attracts like energy. A lot of my clients are Virgos, and I love it, because it's like we get to dive into that together. And I see, right, that mirror and that reflection often. So that obsessive kind of, and I love that you said obsessing about worrying, or right, that is so real.
Hmm.
So it's a few things. Again, that awareness. I think about when I think about astrology, I think about the elements often, and I think about this earth element, but then we have the mercurial, very air energy of the sense of that. It kind of, I think it just gets stuck. It gets stuck. But then we're kind of cut off from the rest of our body, and we're not really being in the presence of everything. And I think about that, if you were to blow that head up and gets bigger and bigger and full with worry and full with worry or obsession, then our feet are dangling and we're like dangling off the earth. Well, then what's going to happen oftentimes is our body's going to talk to us, and not in a very kind way. It's going to want our attention, or something big will happen that will pull us back into the present moment to get us out of here. And that's all to support us in getting out of our head to be more present in the isness of, instead of perseverating or, going back and or going forward. And so again, that piece of awareness, it's where do you notice it the most? Do you get the feeling? Do you have the feeling of, are you aware of the overwhelming worry? Are you aware of the overwhelming criticism for what you think you should have done differently? Are you aware of that? So that is it, the feeling that you're becoming aware of. Is it maybe the body sensation that you're becoming aware of, right? Maybe it's a contraction in your belly, it's tightness. I noticed the other day, I was like wow, because we were getting ready to leave after being somewhere for 2 months, and we made home there for 2 months. So it was all of a sudden we had like a day to get things ready because we just waited and we wanted to enjoy. And my shoulders were up to my ears by day three later. And I was like, whoa, like this is so fascinating. Our bodies are always talking to us. So if we're a little bit more body aware, we're seeing the cues come up. So that awareness of that, the physical body, the emotional body, and just start to see where there might be some, what I called contraction, right? Whether that's a tightness, physical tightness, or an emotional tightness. And also watching others around you, right? So in the sense of maybe they're tight, and you're taking that on like it's that's, now becoming a victim to what they're experiencing.
Hmm.
So the first thing I look for is I go, okay, in those moments, in that awareness of that contraction, what's my personal medicine? Right. And so it's like, can I have enough will? Right. And that's what it often takes in those moments, because we can convince ourselves that we have to do that thing, or we have to worry about it, or we have to think about it, or, we can convince ourselves. But that tightness, again, it doesn't serve anyone, doesn't serve ourselves, doesn't serve our bodies, doesn't serve this temple, doesn't serve this person, doesn't serve the bigger picture, whatever it is. So if we again look at the whole thing of being of service, we can capitalize on that. And then it's the personal medicine piece of something to shift the energy. If we're in that contracted state, it's a lower catabolic frequency. So something that will shift the gear, shift the energy to create momentum in a different direction. So personal medicine for me, it's nature. It's doing something. Get out, hug a tree, put your feet on the earth. It's going and touching a little dog, like a little, and whatever. And just sometimes for me, it's like right now I'm visiting one of my favorite places in Colorado, Crested Butte, and just no phone, just going out and like letting myself stroll around and people watch and just talk to random people. And when we do those things that take us away from that obsessive, crunchy thinking, it opens up our aperture, opens up our ability to just to be more spacious and to allow maybe other ideas, other insights, other people, other things in, another energy in. And we might have insights we didn't have before. We might see another side to the story that we weren't looking at, but there creates this wonderful exhale in our bodies and in our minds. And it's really freeing.
Yeah, I think everything you're describing is, it sounds like you're bringing people into the present, because all that head stuff is usually the past or the future, right? But if you're just focusing on what the sun feels like on your body or something, or this one conversation at a time, that seems like that would help with that. You get grounded, right, in the present moment. That's
Yeah. And this also, just to again bring it back into the body, that might be really useful. Um, this woman, I found this meditation on Spotify. Her name's Nolita Ananda, and it's a short, maybe 8-10 minute meditation. And she uses, there's three tools essentially, and now I just do it on my own without her, but it was really interesting the way she did it. She said in any moment you can break something down to three things: sound, sensation, and breath. And sound is all incumbent upon where you are in your health of sound, but you can use just even sensation and breath. So what I mean by that is, I had this moment where I noticed I was busy mind. So I went into the pool, and I decided to just walk in the pool. And like, it was probably up to my high chest. And as I'm walking, I start to first pay attention to sound, the sounds around me, the children, the people, whatever, not judging, not any labeling, not anything. Then I drop into sensation, the things I was feeling, the coldness on my body, how my body was reacting, even the wind blowing my hair, right? And then breath, bringing it back to breath. So coming into my body, really focusing on my breath. And I gave a little bit to each one of them, probably about 2 minutes each. And again, it brought me, like you're saying, back into the presence.
Yeah, and it sounds like it doesn't take a lot of time. You don't have to have a swimming pool to do it. It's awesome if you do, but you could just do it standing outside near a tree or something
Yeah.
just as easily. So, yeah, thank you for these tips. The final thing I thought, in this big three for what could get out of whack would be sort of the opposite of what we've talked about in the past. I think back in the Capricorn episode, we were mentioning, gosh, Capricorns can get so goal oriented, they forget to enjoy the journey and be focused on the process. But the way I see Virgo energy is sort of flipped. I think Virgo excels at seeing all the details needed to complete a goal. And so this can be great to make sure no steps are skipped, catching errors, but I think it can get out of balance when people are attached to the process and they lose sight of if the goal has shifted. I was thinking of somebody making a recipe and being, in a Virgo fashion, like, this is exactly how we're going to do it. These ingredients, and then they find out they have to replace an ingredient. Somebody can't eat that. Oh, now there's five more people. Is not getting fixated in the original process. How do you help clients who need some help adapting when the plan changes? So to get them actually out of the process so they can step back and see the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all the tools up until this point would be profoundly useful in this moment, right? The sound sensation, breath, all of those kind of things. And anything to, again, become aware of that moment of that occurring, to bring you back out of your head and back into your body, back into the present moment. And so, then, and the thing is that it's this caught on the big picture, the expectation of something showing up in this certain way, or the idea, right? It's like what's that saying, like, tell if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plan, or something like that, right? It's like we
Mm-hmm.
think we have to know everything, and that's where precisely we end up usually getting in our own way, right? So one of the things that came to mind when I was thinking about that is, when I'm in the place of feeling like it's got to be a certain way, and almost like paralyzed or tight, or really really shut off from letting anyone else in, because the plan I think is the right plan went askew or turned right, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm aware, right? That awareness, that so first become aware of that tightness or the biting that happens or anything like that. And then the pause, and pausing is really a useful tool because we're going to do something to probably react to that change or that it's not going the way we want, right? Whether that's we're going to do something like bite or shut down or internal criticize or something, right? Or externally criticize, right? Or freak, and it's not a matter of stuffing our feelings. This is not what I'm talking about. Like, feel your feelings. If it's like, whoa, I'm frustrated right now, I just want this done, and that could be a lovely thing. Or damn it, or just go and have your adult temper tantrum and let it go. But there's something beautiful about this kind of sacred pause when we allow ourselves. If you're a heavy regular meditator, it's 60 seconds. If not, it takes 90 seconds essentially to shift it from the limbic brain into the neocortex, the lower brain into the higher brain. So sometimes, that reaction of something changing or not going the way that we want to, it's that sacred pause. And what you do in that pause, that's up to you. Again, could be your personal medicine. Maybe it's deep breaths. Maybe it is the mantra. Maybe it is that moment of just like, I'm going to give myself full permission to just be really, and just let it go or shake your body or whatever it is for you. That just allows us, again, that moment of that space for a potential redirection. The way to understand the mind is that when we are in high beta, right, we have all those different brain waves. So there's beta as when we're in the learning mode, which is often how we're listening to these programs. But then we go into high beta, and high beta is when we are just like wired and we're in that fight, flight, or freeze. We are in survival mode. And we're operating, most of us, in high beta a lot. Well, we're in high beta. We can't let any other information in. We can't see any other side to a story. We can't even open up to the fact that now we're changing, the plan is changing, because we get so stuck on it has to be. And so that moment, that 60 to 90 seconds pause, or going back to sound, sensation, or breath, or even another one is in that moment, bringing in your mantra, a mantra that will support you, right? So one thing that I've been playing around with lately is, and I forget where I heard this from, but I loved it. Delight and pleasure are non-negotiables. So I just say the delight and pleasure. So that means in this moment of like, rah, rah, it didn't work out, delight and pleasure. So even sometimes I say to myself, like, how can I discover delight and pleasure right now? And I just give myself that moment to look in a different direction. And so simply just creating a little bit of space, again, allows us to maybe move from high beta, maybe down to beta. And all of a sudden now there's spaciousness for something different to occur.
I like that a lot because no matter what your goal is, if it's in your professional career or you are in the kitchen cooking for loved ones or anything, having that delight or whatever you decide is, this is actually the big picture. I'm here to enjoy life, and these other things are part of the journey. But I think it would be really helpful not to lose sight of, we're not here, to just feel stressed all the time.
And that's, like you said, that takes it back to the big picture.
I
It's like
love that.
kind of about it being perfect and having, everybody's coming over for dinner and the napkins haven't been perfect and somebody didn't forgot to iron the napkins or whatever. What's the big picture? The big picture is people are coming together because we can and we love each other and we care, and it's just like, oh yeah, that's right. And so
Yeah.
sometimes, first of all, honoring, like, these are not like, understanding and coming to this awareness using the tools of astrology is so beautiful, not to condemn us, not to put ourselves into a box and make ourselves wrong for it. Understanding that we have a tendency, and this is not a bad thing or a problem, we just have a tendency to veer in a certain direction. And so when we kind of, again, that's why I love inner child work, when we start to love those parts of ourselves and nurture them and let them know, hey, you're okay. And I love you in that. I love you in that. And I love you in that. And all of a sudden, when we show up, there's less criticism. And then it changes because we're not gripping and holding on to it thinking we need it, you know?
For sure. And I think, you reminded me of something we were talking about before we came on, in that the Virgo being of service. I was thinking of you as a coach and having a Virgo rising. And being of service takes on a lot of different forms. Some other zodiac signs, You might think of a Cancer person being of service because they love to create comfort for their loved ones. They also like to cook. Taurus people, things like this that are a gift to give back to others. And I think the way the Virgos like to be of service is in a couple ways. One is just being very capable, and you're like, ooh, they're just going to get it done. This is awesome. But in a coaching context, I think it does have to do with giving people the tools that they need to make themselves more successful and feel better, right? So I think of these tips or the way a doctor would tell somebody, you really should avoid this cholesterol or something. It's not always easy or comfortable for the person, but it's going to be for their best good, right?
I love the differentiation, because that's something that was always really, I didn't fully understand, because I would think like the nurturing, the mothering, but I'm like, that's not necessarily how I see. So I love that you use the example of Cancer, because there is that kind of like tending to the emotion of the person. With the Virgo in me, I find that like it's like I want to support you in being the best version of yourself, and so it's like, I don't actually mind if you even feel uncomfortable, or if we dive into your shadow and we get a little messy every once in a while or whatever, because if you get to love yourself more, come out of it and see these fragmented parts of yourself, or you get to learn a new way of being, or doing things in the world, or whatever it is, then it's worth going there as far as I'm concerned. So it's such a different way of being of service in that moment when you speak of that. So I love that. Love it.
Yeah, it definitely allows for teaching moments, and when it's handled in the highest expression of Virgo, it doesn't come out critical at all. It's
Right.
more like, you're awesome. Here, let me show you. My Virgo proofreader shows me comma rules all the time, and I'm so grateful. It's not my strong suit,
Yeah.
and she's awesome at catching them all. And so there's that both that capability, but also, hey, if you want to do some of this yourself, you can.
Mhm. I love
So,
it. Oh, I love this. I think this is useful for a lot of different people. I really do.
yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it so people can really have that good takeaway. I always want people to feel empowered when they hear about the upcoming astrology or hear things about the sign that they are or that they may have in their chart. This is all really practical ways to work with it. You don't have to feel that it is a burden really at all. We're all have these special gifts in our chart.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Val. We will be back for Libra season, and then we will have a complete set of all 12 signs that I will be leaving up on the channel. I think it's going to be a great resource, even though the astrology will have passed. You can skip ahead to the part where we're just having this part of the conversation and get some tips of working with each energy as we move around the zodiac. So until next time.
Enjoy the rest of the summer.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.